I used to live in a quiet cul-de-sac in southern New Jersey. I just graduated college and moved into a rented guest house behind a retired couple's home. It was affordable, private, and had a small garden that faced the backyards of 3 other homes. One of those homes, directly behind mine, belonged to an older man everyone called Mr. Harlan. He gave me the creeps from day one. He had this massive, overgrown backyard, half-dead trees, knee-high weeds, and a rusted greenhouse filled with broken planters and spider webs. He never seemed to clean it up, but he was always out there. Early in the morning, late at night, just walking the perimeter, not gardening, not sitting, just walking, in slow, perfect circles. Sometimes I'd catch him standing completely still, looking directly at my window. If I made eye contact, he'd wave with this stiff, robotic motion. No smile, no blink, just that silent wave like I'd interrupted a ritual. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe he had dementia. Maybe he was just lonely. Then one night, around 1:30 a.m., I was working late on my laptop when I heard footsteps crunching leaves in the yard. I peeked through my blinds and saw him standing in my garden. Not his, just staring at my back door. I froze. My lights were on. He knew I was home. After maybe a minute, he turned and walked back through a hole in the fence. No explanation. No words. I told the couple who owned the property, and they seemed weirdly passive. The husband just sighed and said, "Harlan's different. Just don't antagonize him." That didn't sit right with me. I bought a motion-activated floodlight for the backyard, thinking it would scare him off if he came near again. It didn't. In fact, it seemed to encourage him. A few nights later, the light clicked on around 2 a.m. I checked the backyard, and there he was, sitting in a lawn chair, right under the light, perfectly still, staring up at my window like he'd been waiting for me to notice. I called the police. They came, talked to him, then told me he claimed I'd invited him to sit there. When I said that was insane, one of the officers pulled me aside and said, "I'd suggest you avoid him. We've gotten complaints before, but nothing we can arrest him for." That same week, I found something deeply disturbing. Behind my shed, someone had arranged small animal bones, neatly stacked, bleached white. Rats, birds, something that looked like a squirrel, all lined up in the shape of a spiral. I took photos, showed the landlords. This time, the wife looked shaken. She said she'd talked to Harlan's family, but I found out later he didn't have any living relatives. That's when I decided to install a camera. The next night, around 3:15 a.m., it captured footage of Harlan standing inches from my window, not doing anything, just breathing, watching. His hand slowly raised to the glass, but he didn't knock, just rested his palm there. 5 full minutes. When I reviewed the footage in the morning, I noticed something worse. The eye in the background, through the branches of his backyard trees, were other figures. Pale, still, just standing there, watching him, watching me, like he wasn't alone out there. I called the police again, showed them the footage. This time, they took it more seriously. They searched his property. Inside his greenhouse, they found dozens of jars, each filled with what looked like preserved animal parts, feathers, twine, and hair, human hair. And in the center of the greenhouse, nailed into the floorboards, was a rotting mannequin dressed in my clothes. Shirt, jeans, even my old college hoodie I'd thrown out in the garbage weeks earlier. That was enough. I moved out that weekend, didn't wait for my lease to end. I didn't even go back for the deposit. A few months later, I heard the greenhouse had burned down. No one knew how. Mr. Harlan was never charged. Apparently, there wasn't enough direct evidence. But sometimes, when I'm alone and hear leaves rustle outside, I check the window, half expecting to see a pale figure standing in my garden. Not moving, not blinking, just waiting. I used to rent this small one-bedroom apartment in Tacoma, Washington. It was nothing fancy, low ceilings, carpeted floors, walls thin enough to hear a conversation through. But it was cheap and close to work. My upstairs neighbor was a guy named Reed. Mid-30s, pale, wore all black. I'd see him sometimes heading out late at night, never during the day. He never spoke unless you forced him to. And when he did, it was this weird monotone, like he was imitating human speech instead of actually feeling anything. The first few months were fine. A little creaking now and then, footsteps in the middle of the night. But hey, it's an apartment. You expect some noise. Then things started getting uncomfortable. I'd be brushing my teeth and hear heavy breathing through the ceiling vent, like someone standing right above it, exhaling slow and deep. I'd pause, wait, and it would stop. I convinced myself it was just bad airflow, or maybe someone had a pet. But then I started finding weird stuff outside my door. A single glove, a used napkin, one time, a broken Polaroid, just black, with the number 2 written on the back in red ink. It always happened at night. And every time, I'd check the hallway security cam. But nothing. No motion. No recordings. One night, I couldn't sleep. Insomnia or maybe just anxiety. So I was up watching TV with the volume low. Around 2 a.m., I heard Reed's footsteps pacing again. Back and forth. Back and forth. And then suddenly, silence. Followed by 3 loud knocks. Boom. Boom. Boom dot. But not on my door. On the floor above me. Directly above my couch. Like he was knocking on his floor, my ceiling. I muted the TV. Just sat there, listening. Then the knocking started again, but slower this time. 4 knocks. Then 5. No pattern. Just rhythmic banging in different parts of the ceiling. Like he was moving furniture or following me. The creepiest part? I never heard any footsteps in between. Just knock. Then silence. Then knock again somewhere else. The next morning, I ran into the building manager, Dave. I asked if Reed had complained about anything or maybe had a medical condition that caused weird behavior. Dave gave me this confused look and said, "Reed moved out last month. I thought you knew." I stared at him, dead silent. "No," I told him. "He's still up there. I hear him almost every night." Dave shook his head. "No one's rented that unit yet. It's been empty since April." I asked him to come up with me to check it out. He agreed, mostly to prove I was paranoid, I think. When we got to the upstairs unit, the door was locked, but Dave had a master key. As soon as he opened it, I got hit with this sharp, sour smell. Like mold and something else, something rotten. The place was trashed. Furniture overturned, black smears on the walls, broken light bulbs in the hallway. There was a weird circle drawn in chalk on the bedroom floor with a pile of ash in the center. The bathroom mirror had writing on it, like it had been fogged up and someone traced letters with their finger. You could just barely make it out. Still watching. I moved out that weekend. Didn't even wait for the lease to expire. Left half my stuff behind. To this day, I don't know if Reed was even his real name. No social profiles, no forwarding address. Dave said the application he used listed a P.O. box that didn't exist. Every once in a while, I still have dreams of knocking sounds above my head. Always at 2 a.m. And when I wake up, I check the ceiling just to be sure. My name's Caleb, and this happened during my second year at a liberal arts college up in Oregon. I wasn't exactly rolling in cash, so when I couldn't secure a dorm after freshman year, I ended up renting a room in this off-campus co-op community. It was this weird mix of 3 old Victorian-style houses, all technically separate, but owned by the same management company. The place was cheap and mostly filled with students, a few grad assistants, and even some older people getting second degrees. One of them was this woman. Lived in house 9, just across the courtyard from me. She had to be in her 60s, maybe older. Wore these oversized cardigans all the time and walked with this uneven limp. I never saw her talk to anyone. No hellos, no eye contact, nothing. At first, I just chalked it up to her being eccentric. It was a college town, after all. But then things started getting off. One night, I went into our shared kitchen to reheat leftovers and saw her standing in the corner. Not cooking, not cleaning, just standing there. Everyone else was chatting, laughing, music playing, and she was frozen in place, just watching. I caught her staring at me a few times, but she never said a word. A couple nights later, I saw her again, but this time through my bedroom window. She was standing out in the middle of the street, facing my house. No phone, no dog, just staring. I waved, half out of politeness, half out of nervousness. That was a mistake. She suddenly grinned, like this weird, twitchy grin, and ran off toward her own house. I didn't sleep that night. I started asking around. Some people knew her by name, others didn't even acknowledge her existence. One guy, a senior, told me she used to be a professor, had some sort of breakdown, but that she'd never hurt anyone. But then why was she outside my window? Why always looking at me? It escalated fast. I'd leave my room and find her standing in the hallway, right by my door, like she'd been waiting for me. She never said anything, just turned and walked off like I'd interrupted her. I started locking my door obsessively. It was an old house, so each bedroom had its own key. Most people didn't bother locking theirs, but I did. Or at least, I thought I did. One morning I realized my key was missing. Not just misplaced, I mean gone. I tore my room apart looking for it, and ended up using my spare until I could get another copy made. Then, a few nights later, I woke up around 3 a.m. to this faint tapping, like something brushing against wood, again and again. I turned over, and realized it was coming from my closet. I froze. I don't consider myself paranoid, but something felt wrong. I slowly got out of bed, grabbed the lamp from my nightstand like a weapon, and yanked the closet door open. There she was, sitting on the floor of my closet. She had one of my belts wrapped around her neck like a scarf, and she was holding a steak knife. Her eyes were wide, like she hadn't blinked in hours. The moment the light hit her, she let out this garbled scream and lunged at me. I fought her off, barely. I yelled until the house woke up, and one of my housemates, Josh, helped me pin her down until the cops showed up. They found my original key in her pocket. Turns out, she wasn't a professor. She wasn't even supposed to be living there. The property manager, some sleazy guy who rarely answered emails, had been secretly housing his mentally unstable sister in one of the unlisted rooms. No documents, no oversight, just dumped her there and hoped no one would complain. He got arrested for negligence. She was taken to a psychiatric facility. I still get chills thinking about that night. I don't know why she fixated on me. Maybe I reminded her of someone. Maybe I waved when no one else did. Or maybe she was just waiting for the right room to unlock. Whatever the reason, I moved out a week later. And to this day, I double-check every closet before going to sleep.